Yeah, I just want to say a little bit more about Lockheed Martin 2 arrows, 4 lines, and 3 intersecting axes. The Transco Tower that turned into Williams Tower, and then the Allied Bank on Milam turned into Wells Fargo, then Williams Tower. Reading the 2 arrows, the 4 lines and 3 intersecting axes is that reading it's like a 2-3-2 Atonement of Green Acres to me. Reading the Lockheed Martin emblem of the 2 arrows, 4 lines, and 3 intersecting axes in a 2-3-2 like da 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 da. Well, anyway, so that's like the eccentric triangles, almost like a double forward slash in HTTP : double forward slash. Presenting that as a double forward slash of Lockheed Martin. In any case, so like ultimately, the screensaver with the 2 eccentric triangles bouncing on each side of the monitor, all 4 sides of the monitor, presenting this symmetrical, asymmetrical design. Knowing that about like a computer programming in languages, that HTTP : double forward slash presents that back-to-back thing, and all that stuff about the eccentric triangle being like the location of the symmetrical, asymmetrical of the screensaver, yet Lockheed Martin. Yet on the Atlantic side, like the Bermuda Triangle. The thing with this is that the blueprint on the wall, ultimately it's like a fifth dimension song in my mind, up in the air in a beautiful balloon. I present the hot air balloons, okay, but it's like about ORyan performance monitoring, okay, and reading the 5 eccentric triangles overlapping each other was based thoroughly and completely on the exact side opposite of the wall of a small little shelf with 2 triangles. Ultimately now seeming to be the thing about the 6-point star of David and Israeli flag, about maybe 2 Delta forces as a misappropriation allocation of the Mississippi. And information Barack Obama had mentioned about Al Qaeda, linking the thing about the Pulse Club in Florida to like real close to I-10 all the way to like Los Angeles. The thing with this is that the color codes it presents the 4, 5 letter acronyms and the 1, 3 letter acronym being a total of 23 letters, okay? And that's the Sigma Alpha Delta Kappa Phi, attenuation being 140 in Pearland, Texas. And the UA and the thing about the UA and the AU and the Alpha Number 222 with that, the attenuation, the attention, the absolute salute, all that. In any case, so like I was thinking about that because the Allied Bank had been brought to my attention from driving with predominantly my mother, and I really don't like calling it downtown, but in any case, the high-rise skyline area around Milam, and that just was like a drive-by. Hey, that's like Allied Bank, and but anyway, kind of like that. I've been out there several times out in that area anyway, for certain factors involving entertainment, including the theater district in Wortham Theater, and certain times there and then. In any case, so like not far from there anyway, but in any case, so like that had transitioned from Allied Bank to Wells Fargo, then Williams Tower, and in between the Transco Tower turning to Williams Tower and the Allied Bank turning to Wells Fargo and then Williams Tower, it's like almost like the area code of Los Angeles, 323, with the 323 reading schematic of the 5 eccentric triangles overlapping on the wall that predominantly originated because of a shelf on the exact opposite side of the wall with 2 triangles. I mean, I was already like thinking that way anyway about the design of state, federal, local authority. Thing about the location and the symmetrical design of like and computer programming language and embedding encryption as far as like the thing about the relation as compared in the linguistic alphanumerics, and and alignment on the wall became like just just a straight edge on a legal pad and like a paper back then with two hearts on it. And it started out with two absolute values based upon the exact 180, on the opposite side of the shelf, based upon the point of view. I mean, it's just like everything was just like thoroughly just like using one line as a reference completely through the entire thing. Not really anything other, but it seemed to be so already like a line based upon that fact. And ultimately it turned into like a 5 eccentric triangles overlapping each other, and like a digitized format of what would be like a digitized mosaic look, but of the United States. Ultimately, I had each point of view with what would be normally the Pacific on the left side of the 5 eccentric triangles, up north, up straight above, towards the ceiling, like really covering really virtually the 3/4, 75% of the wall, like above, probably like at knee level all the way up, really all the way to the floor, about center line on the bunk thing, so like almost like a George Michael song. Guilty feet have got no rhythm, huh? Like a double bass drummer, like doing a thing on like while they're sitting down. So like I was kind of like doing that too, but I was kind of like thinking about that too. But in any case, so like I wasn't really thinking about the Kremlin or anything about crime. It's just that America Online as compared to the Kremlin or the rhyme. I mean, like based really upon certain issues involving linguistic alphanumerics. Ultimately, it gets to applying like pi r squared, like finding the missing or the unknown is the thing about algebra. Likewise, pi r squared is kind of like that principle of an E equal MC squared. And those principles, like, a practical application that way. But it ultimately got to that, and, the thing about, ultimately, it's kind of like a name of, the reason why I'm thinking about this is because I used to listen to Triumph quite a bit, the lead singer Rick Emmett, and the band Triumph. And I think one of their albums is like Allied Forces, okay? And likewise, in addition, it's kind of like a spandex type of design that they had worn during like a music video live recording of a concert, had ultimately turned into like what was available, I think like years later in Macy's as a pair of shorts, like beachwear, swimwear. But anyway, like I got a pair of that, okay? But the thing with this is that that ultimately, years later going through the Stargate program, it's like actually a design of a high-rise building and like 3D generated animation, yet a combine of actual location of a perpendicular spiral using the diamonds, and it ultimately gets to, something about the Hill HX-50 helicopter and making America great again with the same colors of the USA, the United States of America flag, red, white, and blue, and the Great Britain, where Hill HX-50 helicopter is actually manufactured, which was another location taken to, and several locations during the Stargate program. And normally when I refer to it like I was staking there, it's like involving like a lot of intense air race. Anyway, so like anyway, I'm going to skip all that. I'm really not going to skip it. I haven't skipped it really at all. But the thing with this is that that was a location involving like otherwise at the time a place that ultimately was in the infomercial of a specific person. It seemed to be like a classroom setting, and as a different point of view, another location that seemed to be almost like the blue building thing about Korea, almost like a liquid pathway thing about the blue buildings in Kim Un. But anyway, it's like the Korean uniform in an olive color, and in a particular, I'm not sure if he's where it was at, but it seemed to be the same design but a different point of view of the same type of room between like Hill HX-50 helicopter in Great Britain, yet at another location. It's remembering all this stuff is like a 25 years later, and kind of like my memory come back being rejuvenated over just watching world news and national news and certain factors about like YouTube, and Vantage Low 30, and the thing about memory minus the factor being 35, and like a military barrel determinant in the mind's eye about there seemed to be a thing about memory minus the factor being 35, and like an anatomy, the eye itself of even the symbolic on the backside of the $1 bill. the EYE thing, the alphanumeric value of that. Likewise, in addition, Austin, being, you know, state capital, as well as some other factors of Austin. Powers, Blue Bonnet, Imperial, Eagle. But anyway, in any case, so like I was thinking about that because the similarities of the room, it seemed to be like an academic classroom that was like during that time at various locations, giving the impression of similarities in that one particular setting of a Hell HX50 infomercial. And there's only like one guy sitting in there, and I'm in there, and I'm not even sure like where I'm at or why I'm there really. And that was the same thing about the Korean thing, and I'm not sure if it's at what would be something similar to, I guess, a turnpike, or the deal about, you know, clearance, and I'm not sure what the deal was in really either one, but, you know, at least there's a little bit more information other than the thought of Guitar Airlines being something about Korea or Korean, or, you know, even my mind of the Oriental and like ultimately China. Ultimately just being categorization of Oriental and like, you know, Japanese. Thing with this is that in any case, so like the similarities of that had been like issues like going all the way to like Fort Stockton, Texas, in the Permian Basin. Somewhere in my mind, like with the thought of like a Emirates Airline and Guitar Airline and Boeing, and it seemed to be the thing about the, you know, James Long unit and Alpha 200 and the Plateau and all the color codes, even the thing about, you know, even Close Encounters of the Third Kinds and the color code thing about the Plateau, even Atonement that way. But anyway, like I was getting, you know, thinking about, you know, the Atonement of, you know, Lockheed Martin being like Green Acres, at reading the 2 arrows of 4 lines and 3 intersecting axes. Yet after doing all those alignments on the wall, like on a asymmetrical thing about, in my mind, HTTP called the / of computer language programming and like embedding encryption. It's like 5 eccentric triangles that reading it had in my mind the exact opposite of 232, and a 323 reading it analytically and symbolically. The area code Los Angeles. Now, you know, I'd mentioned it previously, you know, in between like a Transco Tower turning to the Williams Tower, a place where like RoboCop, a movie RoboCop was made, and like a Allied Bank on Milam, and it's kind of like almost like the Christian rock band Milam and the Broken Hearts, and you know, something about that particular issue. But in any case, so like a Allied Bank turned to like Wells Fargo. It had like, you know, the identified like engraved like granular whatever type of stone, and years later the Williams Tower, and in between the Transco Tower being 2, and then that location on Milam being Allied Bank and Wells Fargo, then the Williams Tower is like the 3, and then the 2 separate high rises is, it's like reading it as a yeah, it's almost like the 323 in a way, with like a, you know, Transco Tower being, you know, one location with 2 separate names on the building, and then, you know, yeah, and vice versa, the 323, about reading it analytically that way. Yeah, because it's like reading back and forth like analytically between like Transco Tower and that one particular location on there. It's like almost like reading it like schematically as an area code of Los Angeles of 323. In any case, so like this exact opposite of Lockheed Martin, it seemed to be the 5 eccentric triangles of a telepathic blueprint on a wall at a head each point of view, and like Orion Performance Monitor with the hot air balloons on the book cover of Orion Performance Monitoring, also, you know, reading the colors of a rainbow. Likewise, in addition, a diamond as a prism, even Chevrolet Geo Prism and Hyundai Excel, biggest shipment in the port of Houston. So in between the prism and the diamond and the rainbow, using nanoluminance to measure the density. And you know, density is like the reflection of what luminance called light, the luminance of light, reflecting off whatever is shining on. It's the actual density is the reflection of the light. But in any case, so like a night vision and all that's like measured in like nano luminance as density. In any case, so like all that was going on in my mind at the time, because I'd put that on the wall, like even television series Leave Without a Trace. It's kind of like I was kind of spending quite a bit of time on the wall, and it ultimately got to like even the Arctic Circle and certain factors of like attaching a ball with like some thread and taping it to the ceiling. What it would be like in my mind of like a starburst, being all the pastel colors of the candy itself, yet like a geometric starburst based upon all the angles, because between the center line of the window and the center line of the mirror, to the corner from center to end, it's like 22.5 degrees, and all that stuff about the Swiss Klondike bar and a hockey puck in my mind, and being a 22.5, multiplied by 6 is 135 degrees, and all the stuff about all the information was analytically as a centennial, bicentennial, or the alphanumerics of a quarter being 100, or the thing about the 100 Club, or a century, and all that information, and a combine of like all that linguistic alphanumerics, studying language and linguistic alphanumerics. It seemed to be that those locations had that perception in my mind, and I don't know why it's exactly that, but it seems to be something in my mind of like the band Triumph as a color code of like Macy's Parade, because Macy's is actually where I purchased those shorts, and like Rick Emmett is like the one that like really wore the spandex, the length of pants, not necessarily short swimwear as swimwear, but that's actually something I bought as shorts as swimwear. But anyway, and when I saw that like in the Hill HX50 infomercial of the design of the perpendicular spiral, and those locations of like Milam having Allied Bank and Triumph with Allied Forces and all kinds of stuff, and then like the Transco Tower where RoboCop was made. It's like a whole bunch of information, and my thinking of like Houston, Texas being 181, and Wayne International and electronic power and selective service and all that information about it. So like in any case, so like and the Summit being here and using all the concerts and all that, then the Compact Center and how Compact's about computers and computer programming language, and ultimately embedding encryption in the Houston Rockets. Okay, in any case, so like now it's Lakewood. Okay, it's the same location. And I'm actually trying to think if there's any like real connection with all three at different locations. But Univision presents the three pastels. Like Univision seems to be the alphanumerics 132 in presidential, not limited to, and like Iowa Colony. The thing with this is that it seems to be the thing about the book 6 of the Temple House Fetish that runs the country, and the information. And now it seems to be linking Latin America to like the Persian Gulf that way. And I'd mentioned a little earlier that Cybele seemed to be something that had been kind of like led me in the direction of Cybele. I was already like looking at Oracle anyway about the database and enterprise management. Yeah, so I was like doing a little bit of my own thing about database administration and like reading up on it and enterprise management and a little bit about Cybele. And at the time I was actually looking at it, was actually in Arabic. That's really, it's not that it's not normal, it's just that based upon experience, me actually having that would be obviously normal, knowing that wouldn't be like a major surprise like anywhere else other than maybe what's going on in my life anyway. And when it was like really happening and going on, it's like an automatic deal. But it's kind of like linking Arabic and the Persian Gulf to like some information, and I'm actually trying to place if Cybele is actually middleware or firmware or all three, but I'm pretty sure that I think it was like identifying something about the Persian Gulf in Arabic that way. As far as like importing and exporting and certain types of information, it would be with enterprise management between like database administration and middleware and firmware. In any case, so like all that stuff about the dolphin, okay, and the information in Orson Welles narrating Nostradamus and the blue turbans and even JetBlue, and that, jet stream and, jet blue and the Persian Gulf thing and certain information involving even, Orson Welles narrating Nostradamus and the blue turbans. It had been something in my mind that, Orson Welles predicting, narrating, the deal about Nostradamus having the accuracy of 400 years and was referring to the new millennium. And ultimately, the millennium is like 1,000 years, and referring to, ultimately, like the year 2000, and a combine, in my mind, like 2,400, highest possible score of an SAT test, okay? Yet now Obama had presented information about Al-Qaeda linking the Persian Gulf and the Nile and the Euphrates and the similarities of the description of the U.S. dollar below the equator in Latin America, based upon, the idea of something that's like, considered maybe really like not cool about, Mammon as compared to certain information that had linked like the Persian Gulf to, Al-Qaeda and the Post Club in like Florida. Okay, and it like had all the information like on world news, but it, the Post Club was like, kind of like linking like Latin America and Persia, Persian Gulf at that one particular location involving, some content that Barack Obama had referred to several times, not all at the same time that he's trying to demonize it. The thing but is that Al-Qaeda, as far as like linguistic alphanumerics, had got to a point that would be similar to the one frequency above the letter N in Latin terminology, and what would be, symbolic of like 1 cycle per second in oscillation of frequency, has ultimately gotten to, half above and half below a center line of oscillation. Yet with like a practical application of McDonald's golden arches being side by side, a practical application of just being side by side, and the half above and half below becoming side by side, and at a 90 degree, it's like, the latter, the fish swimming upstream, and the symbol of the Christian symbolic symbol of like an electronic schematic fish, but many people don't refer to it as that at all, other than it just being a fish swimming upstream in the ladder is predominantly the point about a 90 degree of an equator, and what a center line of oscillation is at a 90 degree with 1 cycle per second looking like a circle with a dot in it. Ultimately in my mind, like center point energy, the smart meter, and linking all this information I've been talking about on my channel, Wade SV Pretty, PRDDY at YouTube.com, and how like all this is like going on in my mind while I'm on supplemental security income, okay? In any case, for a while, like I really began in 2022, getting a little kind of serious about, putting myself on, YouTube with my drums and like lighting, like you're seeing on me right now with a bunch of 3D animation behind me and special lights, LED light, automated LED lights streaming like a rainbow of raindrop look, yeah. But anyway, yeah. So like I have 3D animation and special laser lighting effects like you're looking at me on now, as you see in my music videos that like do like a wide variety of like predominantly progressive hard rock of a lot of bands, probably close to more than 300 really, more than 3,000 songs really. In any case, so like I'm working on getting the Provision Provision VSX and a Strata Blue, and what you see me on YouTube.com now is a Provision VSX, but in Strata Red, and it's 35 pieces. And what I'm getting is still going to be 35 pieces, except it's going to be likewise still Provision VSX and a Strata Blue, and all that. So like I think I'm going to go ahead and go with like the pasty Color Sound 900 and go all blue. And I'm already like looking, and I've been looking for quite some time, and I hope it's not going to be the issue of getting it and the availability, but like serious chromium hardware stands and hardware for like mounting the toms in a chromium blue, that even the drum throne, the snare stand and hi-hat stand, I mean everything with blue chromium, and not an issue of like any sweat presenting any ridiculous issues of any type of corrosion. It's like unreal, like not cool about certain situation about all that. But anyway, yeah. So like the way I practice drums, I mean, it's predominantly like normal to like throwing sweat all over the place, you know, even with sweatbands or, you know, doing it all day, you know, sometimes all day and night, you know. But anyway, yeah, so like that's kind of like normal. But maybe a little more air conditioner will, yeah, even with air conditioning and like ice cold, I mean, sweat is like serious like stuff, right? So like in any case, so like yeah, so like I'm looking to do that real soon and maybe get a little bit more lighting. I have some more lighting coming on now. There's been a little bit of change going on here right now, and really I'm kind of like working on, you know, getting a commercial venue, living quarters, yeah, completely all about music, video, audio production, and you know everything about, you know, sales, promotions, distribution, and you know get really into my original music and you know really get into doing what I like doing anyway. But yeah, not limited to, but yeah, for real. So like anyway, like I'm kind of like taking my time here because I've been thinking about that quite a bit about you know the Boolean chart that's in Principles of Digital Audio, and about sequencing characterization sets for in the symbolic representation that's included with it. They seem to be more so predominantly notable in the issue, like in the Stargate program. It's almost like completely not quite the same. Approach of a normal way of thinking is really kind of like not normal about the way I think about it. But yeah. So like anyway, so like it's already going on. What is going on? What 26 minutes and like 48 seconds right now. But yeah, I want to include that because while I was thinking about it, about you know the Transco Tower, turn to Williams Tower, and a location on Milam. And I'm not real clear, but it seemed to be, you know, the thing about the black and blue thing on Milam. I'm not sure if that would be anything about like a song by Chris Tomlin, Holy Forever. Sing the song Ages to the Lamb. You know, it's kind of like, you know, I never thought about the word lamb being anything about linguistic alphanumeric military burial. And I'm not really clear on that, but it seemed to be something about baptism. If any reference as an acronym, linguistic alphanumeric military, you know, although there seemed to be the mind's eye thing about an experience and certain things about, you know, color code, there seemed to be something that had been used with black and blue, including other factors and, you know, obviously entertainment. But yeah, so like any case, so like it's kind of like thinking about that. But anyway, so like anyway, I'm kind of like going to get off that subject or topic, maybe more so the word topic, yeah. But anyway, it's kind of like thinking about that. And as far as the Milam location, yeah, Allied Bank and Wells Fargo and Williams Tower. So like anyway, yeah, I think I'm going to stop right there and think about it, because it seemed to be in between, you know, the Wells Fargo and the Milam location of Allied, Wells Fargo, and Williams. It seemed to be like the area code of Los Angeles 232 as compared to a 232 of Lockheed Martin, 2 arrows and 4 lines and 3 intersecting axes. And in between those two buildings, yeah, it seemed to be the 323 thing about it. And the wall of a telepathic blueprint, and the way it's read analytically and symbolically. So like anyway, yeah, so like there it is. I'm going to take a break, okay? There it is, yeah.